Okay, I guess we are live. So welcome again to the third episode of our Alumni Connect series. I'm Asim again, hosting this episode, and tonight we have with us an alumnus of Civil Engineering Department of IUST, Mr. Murshid Hussain Qazi. Murshid, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure for us. Okay, first of all, we would like to tell our viewers what Alumni Connect is. Alumni Connect is a part of the activities under the umbrella of IUST Alumni Council. And this series is aimed at hosting the notable alumni of IUST in a one-on-one interaction with the alumni of IUST. I'm also the alumnus of IUST. Murshid is also an alumnus of IUST. So the ultimate objective is to engage the current students and the alumnus in a network so that it ultimately results in benefit to the university in particular and society at large. Okay, so a brief introduction about Murshid. Murshid is an alumnus of Civil Engineering Department of IUST. He started his undergraduate studies in 2013. He enrolled in BTech Civil Engineering and completed in 2017. After completing his undergraduate studies, Murshid went to the United States and pursued his master's in civil engineering, particularly structural engineering, if I am right, Murshid. His master's in structural engineering from the New York University. And he's currently working in a multinational engineering and design firm, which goes by the name WSP USA. Okay. Welcome to the show again, Murshid.
Thank you so much.
So let us start. This is the first question we ask to every alumni of IUST we host in this series. Let us start with the IUST of 2013 when you joined. What difference do you see in the IUST of 2013 and the IUST of 2020? I hope you might have visited after 2017. So what difference do you see?
But after 2017, I didn't get a chance to visit again. But during those 4 years, I saw there was a lot of development in terms of infrastructure, in terms of academics, and people were putting more effort to improve the university on all levels. Like there were more courses, there were more professors who were like PhDs or who had higher qualifications, and we had people organizing events organizing a lot of events in school and having more activities which can help in the overall development of students. So I saw that at 2013 there were not that many activities happening at that time. So within those 4 years, I saw a lot of changes in all those things. It was both academic and there was a lot of change in infrastructure. Like after every winter break, there was a completely different infrastructure built over there. So there were a lot of changes during those 4 years, and I believe in last 3 years it might have changed a lot as well. So, but I've seen that I've talked to a lot of juniors during those last 3 years, and I've heard really good things about IUST and how things have changed. So, yeah.
Okay, Murshid, I have been informed that you were selected for the architecture course at Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Katra, and also for electronics and communication engineering course at SMVDU. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So basically,
but what stood so unique for IUST that you chose civil engineering at IUST over the courses at SMVDU, given the fact that SMVDU at that time was placed very high in rankings as compared to IUST?
So for me, the first thing was that growing up, I was really fascinated by buildings and structures. So I always wanted to either do architecture or civil engineering. So electronics and communication was not in contention. But I was confused between architecture and civil engineering. But later I realized that if I do civil engineering, I'll have the technical experience, and I'll do the technical aspects of designing. And with architecture, I can, if I later on in my career decide to move to architecture, I can easily roll over. But it would be really hard to switch from architecture to engineering later on. So that was one of the major factors that helped me decide that. And the other factor was I would say, I talked to one of my seniors from IUST, and he said really good things about it. He graduated in 2012 or 13. He was with you in your batch, and he told me really good things about IUST. So, and it was clear-cut choice between at that time for me.
We have seen in last few years, and even when I started at IUST in 2009, 2009 was the first batch in civil engineering, and since then it has been a decade, and I have seen multiple batches of civil engineering students. They stand apart from all other branches. That's very phenomenal about the department. Okay, Murshid, tell me about any one skill that you acquired at IUST and it has been helping you since you left in 2017.
I would say, like during 2013 and 17, two major things happened in Kashmir. One was the 2014 flood in 2014 and 2016, obviously. So while I was at IUST during that time, and I realized that looking at people and the group of people I was with, and other people in IUST in general I met, I realized that no matter what the situation is, no matter what's happening, no matter what life gives you, people have, if you have a good positive attitude towards life, if you are willing to work, and if you are focused, no matter what happens, no matter what's happening around, you will succeed and you will do well in life. Because these things can pull you down. These things you can lose hope in such situations. It's been tough for everyone, but these things make you stronger. These situations, and you see people around who have struggled, who have gone through those situations, like who've been there in 2014 and 16, and after that they come back stronger and they focus on their studies and they focus on whatever life goals they have. So that thing I realized, and I learned that from all people all around me, and that helped me a lot. Whenever I face a difficult situation, I remember, okay, this is how people have a positive attitude and they try to make the best out of whatever they have. So that's something that I learned, and that's something that really helped me in all like difficult situations.
And that's great, Murshid. Uh, Taking your journey from IUST to New York University, your master's has been from a university of repute. It continuously features in highly ranked engineering colleges in the engineering universities in the world. So, what was the thought process behind your pursuing your master's in US in a world-class university? Was that you were planning for it in right from the initial days of your bachelor's, or it stuck later in your undergraduate studies, or was there some guidance behind it? The reason I'm asking this question is the students who are currently in IUST, even in their final year of engineering, they usually don't have any clue of what they are going to do after their BTech. And you immediately after completing your BTech went on to pursue masters in a world-class university. So what was the thought process behind it? What was the preparation you did for it? And what are the things you would like to suggest to the current students? How should they go about it?
So let me start off by telling you about my experience. I knew in my first year that I would go for masters outside. I didn't know which field and which country. I didn't narrow it down at that time, but I started the research. I started researching in my first semester only. But the thing that helped me is that I had a friend who had similar interests. So we used to go to these conferences, or we used to attend these convocations, conferences by universities outside or wherever, and we used to get as talk to consultants and people like that, and gain more information about a lot of things. And with every year, I learned more. And initially, I was inclined towards some other countries, and but then later, I talked to a lot of people. I talked to consultants, and I learned more. And I realized that US would be the best fit. And for civil engineering or for structural engineering, New York City or US would fit more. And the thing that helped me is that I had really good teachers at IUST. I would want to mention architectural Gurnan Rashid. I don't think you would know her, but she guided me a lot during that time, and she introduced me to a consultant in India that's called USIEF. I would like to tell students who are aspiring to study in US, you should consult USIEF. It's a United States India Education Foundation, and they have it's a government organization. US government and Indian government collaborated, and it's a government organization. So you can talk to the consultants there. They can guide you through that. So I didn't know about that. One of my teachers at IUST told me about that, and the other fact was that my friend who was with me at IUST had similar interests. So that's something that helped me. But it wasn't like I wanted to do it in the last year of my bachelor's. It started at very early. on. But the one thing I would say is that if you're planning to study outside, you need to start early. Don't narrow it down to one thing, because a lot of things change throughout your 4-year BTech course. You start with something, you think something in your first year, and second year, third year, you change as a person completely. It's a transforming experience. 4 years of engineering is, I would say, it transforms you as a person, and you learn a lot, and you think differently every year. It's so don't narrow it down. Just keep your options open. Do as much research as possible. There are a lot of avenues right now for each country. Like, there are a lot of countries where they're like people go out to a lot of other countries as well. I even applied to some other countries. I applied to Australia as well and Canada. So I kept my options open, but later I decided to go to US. But that's what I'm saying. Don't narrow it down to one thing. Just keep your mind open, but do your research and know what your goal is, what exams you have to take. So if you're planning to come to US, you'll have to take GRE, you'll have to take TOEFL, and I believe GRE is accepted all around in most universities around the world. And so one thing I would make sure that you students who want to study is that if you're planning to do your master's right after your bachelor's, you need to apply to US and universities 1 year in advance. So if you're because you have to, if you're planning to, for example, if you're planning to apply in next fall, you need to apply before December, around December. So you need to take your GRE and TOEFL like around 5th or 6th semester. So if in order to do that, you need to do your research as early as possible. So just to make sure, in case you're planning to go anywhere around the world, just make sure that you get done with these 2 exams as early as possible. Later on, you just have to apply, and then you can. GRE is valid for 5 years, so it's not like it's not going to be valid. And later on in 7th or 8th semester, you get more busy with studies and projects and everything. So it's better you just do it as early as possible. But one more thing I would say is that you shouldn't. What I realize is that you shouldn't rush to masters. You should just work for 1 year at least, get some work experience before you do your masters. I should have done that, but I didn't do it. I was fortunate that I got an internship while I was studying, so that helped me a lot. But I realized that if I had a 1 year of work experience before I came for my masters, it would have helped a lot. So if you, in case you're not in a hurry, you don't want to do your masters right after your bachelor's, you should take 1 year gap, work for 1 year in the same profession you want to pursue your masters, and that helps your application as well.
That's quite informative, Murshid. One thing that strikes my mind every time I see advertisements or every time I see people applying for admissions abroad, in India, in particularly in Kashmir, we have 2 sessions in a year. Autumn session, which starts in around August, and then we have spring session, which starts around March. And the terminology used in US is fall or something else. I don't exactly know. But can you please give us a brief background of what admission sessions are, and what are the timelines that a student should keep in mind while applying for those admission in those sessions?
So there are 2 major admission sessions, fall and spring. But major intake happens in fall. Fall is like around September, October. So universities start accepting students for fall. Fall session starts in September or October. So that's the major intake. A lot of courses are not offered in spring. So if you're planning to come to US, so just apply for fall session. And in order to apply for fall, you have to apply a year in advance, because it's not just applying. After that, you have to do a lot of other things as well, like visa application and everything else. So you have to, the deadlines generally, like for fall next year, like fall September 2021, the deadlines would be like December 15, initial deadlines for a lot of universities. And then some universities extend their deadline to like January 15 or February 15. But you should always try to, if you have time, if you have taken your exams early in your 5th or 6th semester, you should try to apply around 15th of December if you want to apply for fall. But make sure if you don't have to apply in spring, make sure you apply for fall. And what happened with me is, when I had applied for fall, but because of 2016, our semester got delayed and I had to defer my admission. So you can do that as well. So even if because fall is the major intake, you should apply for fall. And if you don't want to go in fall, you can just ask the university to defer your admission by 1 semester. You can go in spring as well. Because spring intake, they don't take a lot of students in spring. There are not a lot of courses that are offered in spring. So that will hurt your chances.
Okay, I guess students should be aware of these things before applying. One more thing, how easy or how hard is it to get admissions to universities of high repute? Does One more question, I want to add a small question to this. Does CGPA have a big role to play in securing an admission?
Yes, let me tell you something. While I was at NYU in my first semester, I worked at graduate admissions for some time. I worked as there as a graduate assistant. But the thing is that I realized while I was there in admissions that CGPA plays a huge role in there. So one thing you need to keep in mind, since IUST is a new university, so we are in tier 3. So there's in India, universities are ranked as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So we are in tier 3. So assume someone in IIT gets 60.6.5 CGPA and someone in IUST gets like 8.5. They are comparable. So all these CGPAs gets converted into GPA, which is out of 4. So what a lot of universities do is that they filter out applications because there are a lot of applications. So what they do is like out of 4, if it's below 3.5 or below 3.3, whatever the requirement is, they won't even look at your application. It will just go out. So when they convert it, it will go out. Then they look at the pool of the applications which are above 3.5 or whatever the requirement is, different for different universities. They look at those applications and they'll see other things like GRE score, your TOEFL score, your overall profile, your SOP and everything. But CGPA, in US at least, CGPA plays a huge role. And just make sure that you keep your CGPA really high because of the thing that we are in third tier, we have to make sure it's about 8.5 or it's around 8 or 8.5 at least.
Okay, now suppose we have an applicant whose CGPA is not so charming, but he or she still wants to apply to universities abroad. Is there a way around to compensate for that low CGPA, like maybe some research papers?
Absolutely. Your overall profile helps a lot, but research papers help you. Good GRE score or your good TOEFL or whatever your application is. You have done projects in your degree that helps a lot. But I believe it will be really hard because it will be hard to get in a really good university. You can get in a decent university, but it will be really hard. Like because those universities just filter out. They have a lot of applications. They don't have time to look at every application. They just filter it out based on CGPA and GRE scores first. That's the first filter they apply. That someone who has a GRE quant of 160 or 165, below 165, they won't even look at it. After completing that one round or after looking at those applications, if they don't have any more applicants, then they'll come back at those applications which have lower scores. So one thing I can suggest is that you can contact professors at that school. You can see the department you're interested in. All the professors have their email address over there. You can contact the professor and you can tell them that this is the kind of research that you've done. This is the paper you've published. You're willing to be work as a teaching assistant or a research assistant. So that helps a lot. As master's student, if you are a teaching assistant or a research assistant with a professor, that they'll give you a tuition waiver and they'll even give you a stipend. So that helps you financially as well. So you can always try that. It doesn't hurt to send an email to a professor, but just make sure that you don't send a generic email. Just make sure it's specific to every professor. See what his research interests are, what subject he teaches, and what your interests are, and talk to him and tell him that this is what you've done and this is what you want to do. And then if he sees that okay, you will be a good fit for him, he can talk to the admission office and he can see how the admission process runs. But that doesn't happen in every university. But then this is a really good way of going around it.
Okay, Murshid, you have studied at IUST and you have studied at NYU. What are the things that immediately strike your mind that IUST should learn from the universities that are world class?
So one thing that I realized is that at NYU, or I've studied at NYU, what thing happens is that if I take a course, you grow every week. Like what you have an assignment every week, and it's not like you can just copy it from internet or you can just find it out. Professors work really hard to find those problems, and in order for you to solve those problems, you have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of research to get a result. So because of that, at the end of semester, you don't even have to look at your books because you've worked your way through those problems and you learn a lot during that process. So that is something I think we should adapt. And what happens is that what I realized even in my bachelor's, what we do is we tend to keep our studies back. We tend to study just before the exam, and then we don't retain a lot. It's something a lot of students do, and I don't think that's a healthy thing. By that way, we don't actually learn a lot. We just spend time. One of my professors said that at NYU, if you're actually doing something, if you're spending time on something, you might as well learn something. Because we tend to spend time on something just to get through the exam, and not focus on the learning process. But what I believe is that the learning process is really important, and we need to focus on our learning, and we need to make sure whatever we are studying, we understand whatever we are doing, and make sure that we have these assignments. We don't focus like we just have 10% for projects or 10% for projects and for 50 and 90% for midterms and 40% for midterms and 50% for final exam. We don't do that. We just put a lot of uh, we give a lot of credits for these assignments so that students take that more seriously and they work for it. It shouldn't be like that the students can just copy it from internet. It should be like they have to really study in order to solve the solutions. And we have to make sure we run all those assignments through plagiarism checks so that we see that they don't copy. So otherwise, what happens? A lot of us just copy from other people and then just submit the assignment that way. If we run plagiarism checks, we become strict about these things. Then they won't copy and they will do it on their own. Because if we run a plagiarism check on something and it's similar to whatever someone else has done or something on the internet, then we would give credit to those students. So they'll have to work for it then. So everyone will do their own assignment. So that's one thing I would suggest. That's one difference I saw.
Your profile reminds me of a Kashmiri who some decades ago went to US. He was a structural engineer, and I guess you might be knowing him, Shafat Ahmed Qazi. He was he's the founding CEO of BQE Software. He went as a structural engineer and ultimately shifted his interests to IT and software. So is structural engineering your first love, or would you like to change it to some other field in future?
Right now, I'm really enjoying whatever I'm doing because I always, as I told you, I was really interested in buildings, and Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that I got the chance to work on high-rise buildings in Manhattan and in New Jersey as well. Right now, I'm working on some projects. So right now, I want to focus on that. I want to see that unless and until I'm learning, I'm fine with it. But I want to make sure that I want to learn some coding and stuff, so that because every field right now is moving towards IT, you need to have some coding experience, no matter which field you are. You're civil engineering, or mechanic, whatever it is. You just make sure that you learn coding in your bachelor's. Just spend time on it. It will help you a lot. That's an advice I would give to civil engineers at least, because I think computer science and everyone else already does it. But just make sure you learn coding.
That's really very good advice to civil engineering students. Most of them are reluctant to switch to fields like coding and other stuff, computer-related stuff. But I guess they should.
Because with AI and machine learning, everything is integrating. Like even we as structural engineers use a lot of softwares and everything. And these things, building process, construction, everything is becoming like automated, and we need to we figure out a lot of mistakes early on in the design process only because of these tools. So if we learn coding, it will help us a lot. And it's a lot of people do nowadays. I've seen a lot of people doing who have done their masters in structures doing PhDs which involve AI, machine learning, and structural engineering. It's like culmination of these things, and I think that's the way forward for structural engineers and everyone else. What I've seen the trend around, everyone is learning coding no matter what you're doing. Everyone is learning that, and just make sure that even if you're a civil engineer, just learn coding, because you have in undergrad we have a lot of time. We get a lot of time. We make sure we utilize it properly.
I guess Ahmed Wani is also doing the same thing. He went on to found that one concern, and ultimately he integrated this AI and machine learning concepts in predicting, or I guess assessing the damage. I'm not sure. He's doing something around that only.
Because he's in California, and there are a lot of earthquakes in California is an earthquake-prone zone. So that's what he integrated with that. And it's been
that was a very, very nice concept he utilized. Okay, okay, Murshid, would you like to share some anecdote from the days of IUST?
I don't remember anything in particular, but I would say that my experience at IUST was amazing. The group of people I met, I learned a lot from them. They were like amazing, and the thing was that they were always focused on their goals. No matter what we had different goals, but they were always focused on their goals. So that's one thing I would say, that surround yourself with people who are focused. And yeah, I don't remember any anecdote, but I remember something bad that happened recently, and I want to make sure that one of my friend who was my batchmate in school and who was an IUST as well, Harun Qureshi, he just passed away last year. I just want all my viewers to just pray for him. And yeah, he was a really bright student and he was a really good athlete. So yeah, just so that you remember in his prayers, him in his prayers, in your prayers.
Yes, Murshid, it was a very sad moment for all of us at IUST. I hope his soul rests in peace. So, in future, if at any time IUST requires your services, would you be available?
Absolutely. So if any student who's planning to apply online or apply abroad in any country, you can contact me and you can ask me for resources. I'll tell you which resources you need to, which consultants or which resources you can use, and that will help you a lot in narrowing down your options. One thing I would want you to, if students are looking to apply outside, there's an app called Yocket. I used that back in 2016 and 17. Now they've improved it a lot. What happens is that people create their profiles online. They show their interest, like which universities are interested in, what are their scores. They meet you with similar students who are interested, or people who had similar scores and where they got accepted. So that way you can figure out what your goals should be, which university you should be looking at your scores and at your GPA. And you can talk to the people who have already been selected, and you can talk to them and see if this is what you're looking for. Because we generally just look at the ranking and don't look at what's happening in the university. By talking to people who are already there, you would learn way more, and you would understand if this is a good fit for you. So if anyone in civil engineering preferably, or if any other field wants to know about any resource, if anyone is planning to come to US and has any questions, they can ask me anytime. You can share my email address with them, and they can, if they want help with their anything, letter of recommendation, how I got them, or SOPs, or anything, whatever it is, or GRE books, whatever books I would they want to study for GRE, so they can contact me and I'll be happy to help.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Murshid, can you just spell the name of the app you just mentioned?
Yocket. It's YOCKET.
All right. I guess it would be very beneficial for the students. They would have in mind which university to target, what would be the probability of their acceptance.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great, Murshid. It was a pleasure to have you on our show, and I hope the students will keep benefiting from your expertise.
Thank you for having me. I hope you have a great evening.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.